The War is Over, the Stonehouse Series, Chapter 46. Sunrise arrived with no dew on the grass. Dry evening air did not transition. No moisture had arrived, and the road between Bethany and Jerusalem was just as dusty as it was the night before. Morning light was shining on their backs as Jesus and his disciples approached Jerusalem. 26 flapping feet created a small cloud as John left the road to inspect Jerusalem's fig tree, which Jesus had cursed the day before. Sun's horizontal beams of brightness only intensified the tree's condition. Green leaves had transformed to a crackly, crisp brown. Every presence of life exhibited by the tree had drained completely down and out. Leaving Bethany Road to follow John, 11 others approached in amazement the withered fig tree. Plucking a leaf from its branches, John held it in his hands. Studying it closely, he closed his fingers around the leaf and squeezed, listening to it crackle and crunch. Opening his hands, dozens of fragments fluttered to the ground. "Jesus, what did you do to this fig tree?" Jesus circled around the tree to face its deadness, with the temple again in the background. "Have the faith of God, and you will not only do what I have done to this fig tree, but if you say unto this mountain, 'Be removed and cast into the sea,' and shall not doubt in your heart, but shall believe that whatever you say shall come to pass, you shall have whatever you say." Whacking his hands together to knock off every last bit of brown leaf fragment, John asked, "And how can we get this faith of God? Where does it come from?" "When you were born of my Father, the faith of God will be in you. Now, not in your body of flesh, and not in your mind, but in spirit you that has been born of my Father. It will then be your responsibility to let that faith flow out of you and change your mind, your body, and the world around you. You speak to the storm and demand it to stop. You speak to the mountain and cast it into the sea. You speak to the disease and command it to die. You speak to the missing leg and tell it to be." John cringed, looking at his hands and then at the faces of those around him. "We are to do that? Who are we?" "It's not who you are, it's whose you are. And it's not what you are, it's what you carry. You will be sons and daughters of my Father. You will carry his nature and character in you. You take the gospel into all your world." "And how do we know what to change?" asked John. "When you and the others asked that I teach you how to talk to my Father, what did I tell you?" "You identified that we will call him Father, and to call for his will to be done on earth as it is in heaven." "You must know what his will is. You must know him to know his will. And next, do your part in changing what is not his will. He wills that all be saved and come into the knowledge of the truth. All people, all knowledge, and all truth. He wills that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. Make disciples of all people, not subordinates or dependents. Disciples. This new birth makes all men equal, one. Who is Israel but he who was born of my Father and does the will of my Father?" Jesus said as he turned away from the fig tree. Overwhelmed with what he could not do and a weight that he could not carry, John remembered how Peter looked when he stepped out of the boat into the middle of a massive storm, and when he walked on the water for a little while. Only a moment later, they all watched as Peter began to sink slowly. As his fisherman's knowledge worked against him, slowly sinking in water up to his armpits, somewhere above the lake bottom, 20 fathoms below. John understood the same wide-eyed desperation which Peter expressed, yelling, "Jesus, save me!" as his feet desperately tried to find a foothold of substance, with wind-blown waves crashing into his face, sinking into the raging sea. John blurted out the words, "Jesus, we can't do it on our own what you want us to do. You are leaving too soon. We can't do this without you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Don't be apart from me." That's a paradox, thought John. Sure, walking on water is easy, just don't get wet. Yes, sir, that's exactly what I was thinking. John pushed against his memory of Peter flailing around in white-capped water of wind-whipped waves, twice the height of a tall man. It was the picture of Jesus he wanted to see, one dead calm spot of water around the man that neither rose nor fell. And when the boat dropped into the gulf, waves of water had blocked their view of Jesus, but when they rode up on the crest of a wave, they looked down to see Jesus take the hand of Peter. Amazed, they watched Peter rise up and stand in the same calm spot with Jesus. And next, with a boatload of disciples bobbing around like a cork in a hurricane, Jesus rebuked the wind and gave peace to the sea. The wind stopped, the sea went flat, and a perfectly dry Jesus helped a soaking wet Peter over, and they climbed into a sodden boat with 11 men that had the appearance of drowned rats. It was when Jesus climbed into the boat with his disciples and the several hundred gallons of water sloshed around in the bottom of the boat that his feet had finally gotten wet. From the center of the soul in the garden growing there, all that the good gardener ever did was to manage the condition and give the seed a protected space to grow. The harvest is in the seed.